Hi, this is Martin Cole from Self-Determined Leaders, and this video is about the power of being able to say I don't know. It's aimed particularly at new leaders, and it shows how admitting what you don't know can actually make you a more credible and powerful leader. The thing is, when you are a new leader, you feel very much in the spotlight. You feel like you are the person who has to have all the answers. So when someone asks you a question and you don't immediately know how to respond, you're often scared that admitting that you don't know is going to make you look like something of a fraud. But the reality is it won't. In the right circumstances, saying I don't know could be one of the best tools that you have in your leadership toolkit. It's not a weakness to admit that you don't always have the answers. And in fact, as we'll see in this video, it's a way that you can build a foundation of trust, and you can open up your team to being a high performing and high learning team. So the first reason why it's important to be able to say I don't know is because the truth matters. When you're in a leadership position, you can't bring into that position some of the behaviours that you'll see elsewhere in the world. You need to be able to be honest, because if you're not, you'll soon find that you might not be leading at all. Credibility for leaders is everything. Pretending to know an answer when you don't know it can quickly destroy your credibility when it becomes clear that you were wrong. So establishing your credibility, showing how you are trustworthy, and avoiding getting a reputation as someone who is a bullshitter is really important. So you need to be the person whose responses can be relied upon, even if you have to say, I don't know, but let me find out, let me get back to you. There's lots of people in the workplace who will say what other people want to hear, will come up with answers, but they may not always be right, and their credibility will be called into question as a result. So if you're the person who's honest enough to say, I'm not sure, I'll find out, that is going to be better for you. Now, there are limits to this, and we'll talk about that at the end, but the point I'm making here is how important it is to be honest, to be trusted, and to have a reputation for somebody who tells the truth as a leader. And the other important aspect of being able to say I don't know is a bit more abstract, but is a really important one. It's to do with building the sense of psychological safety in your team. Psychological safety is a concept that's been researched heavily by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson. And the thrust of her research is that the best performing teams do operate with psychological safety is the situation where there's a shared belief in a team that it's safe to speak up, it's safe to answer questions, safe to admit errors, and that nobody's going to be punished, nobody's going to be humiliated. Leaders are critical to the creation of a psychologically safe environment. The leader's behaviours are really one of the most important and deciding factors in creating that environment. So your humility as a leader, your openness, your willingness to admit that you don't know something or to admit when you're wrong, gives your team the permission to do the same, to be open and willing to admit when they don't know things. So the research from Amy Edmondson shows that leaders of teams where there is a high level of psychological safety are people who are willing to admit their own mistakes and admit when they don't know things. They're leaders who ask for feedback and input. They encourage other people in the team to collaborate and discuss. And they are people who coach their team when there's a question to be resolved. They don't just tell. And they certainly don't tell with an answer that they don't know to be true. Leaders in teams where there's a low level of psychological safety are people who avoid acknowledging that they've made an error at all costs. They're defensive if they're challenged by colleagues. They don't encourage people to speak up, and they blame other people for their mistakes. And all of this is really important, because this psychological safety that's founded to a large degree on the openness and honesty of the leader is what makes teams better at learning, and consequently makes them high performing. But the important point to remember, as I alluded to earlier, that being willing and able to say I don't know is not an excuse for being unprepared. There's a big difference between admitting when you don't know something and simply not having done the work when you should do to know what an answer is. You as a leader, you're still expected to have a solid grasp on the fundamentals of all the things you're responsible for. But it's okay if you say that you don't know, if it's something that it's reasonable for you not to know. And that's the critical point. It's not an excuse for laziness. It's a way to build credibility and trust, as we've said. So a good don't know is when you'll admit you don't know the answer, and it's reasonable for you not to know. It might be complex, it might be new, it might be a highly technical question, but you'll go away and find out. A bad I don't know is when it's something that you should know and you just haven't done the preparation. So look, you're not going to be in that space, but it's important to bear that in mind. So what can you do to build your capacity and willingness to say I don't know, which, as I said at the beginning, is often hard when you're new to leadership. You often feel like you don't want to admit that you're not the sort of font of all knowledge. So firstly, you can practice this. You can practice saying, look, I don't really know. It's a great question. I'll go away and find out. I'll get back to you when I've got the answer. Just make it natural and practice that. If you practice doing that, it will become natural to you. But also, you can add to your I don't know. You can use it as an opportunity for collaboration and for inviting other people to contribute to the answer. So I'm not really sure what the answer is, but what's your view from your perspective? What are your thoughts on this? It's another way to build your I don't know, your ability to say I don't know. An important aspect of that, though, is of saying I don't know, is to make sure that you do follow up. If you say that you're going to go away and find out the answer, you can't just say I don't know, I'll find out, and then do nothing about it, because that's again going to damage your credibility. And finally, just get used to modelling openness with your teams. Encourage input and discussion. Difficult questions are better answered by the combination of several minds and several inputs than a single person. So taking that approach, being willing to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, is a way that's going to really build that sense of psychological safety in your team. And all of this is about becoming more confident as a leader. And the confident leaders are the ones who don't pretend to know everything. They're secure in themselves, and they're secure enough to admit that they don't know when they don't know, and when it's reasonable for them not to know. And they also realise that is a positive thing. It's where you get learning, you get collaboration, and you get higher performance. So there's much more on building up your leadership confidence at the Self-Determined Leaders, in the Self-Determined Leaders newsletter, which we send out on a weekly basis. If you go to the link that is on screen and also below in the description to sign up for the newsletter, you'll get our free coaching questions framework. And this is a really helpful way for you to supercharge the development of your team. It's a way to build on the idea that you want to have a collaborative approach. You ask the right questions, you're going to get good answers, you're going to help your team develop, and you're going to have a higher performing team. So please go to the link below, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll receive the free coaching questions framework as well.